Hi, I'm Andy Ellis. I'm the host of this show and a potential Green Party candidate for Governor of Maryland in 2026. I'm using this show to highlight interesting people and ideas that help me and you to understand what is happening and what is possible. You can learn more about the campaign by going to gogreen2026.com. Guests on this show do not necessarily support my campaign or the Green Party. They've agreed to come on to discuss ideas and issues. And of course, click the subscribe button on YouTube so you can keep up to date with this podcast. Good afternoon. It is October 12th, and as we get closer to Election Day, the frenzy around the presidential race and the presidential campaign is growing and drowning out almost everything else. But around the country, there are races up and down the ballot that are just as important, and Green Party candidates are competing in those races. Today's guest is KODA Daily, a 21 years young Green Party candidate running for state representative in Hawai'i District 48. From his website, the intention of his campaign is to uplift and empower the youth to take responsible actions toward the golden future of Hawaii that we want to see manifest. I'm excited to welcome KODA to the show.
Hey, aloha. Thank you so much, Andy, for having me.
Yeah, KODA, it's good. I know we did that call back in August with the Green Party convention, and I was really excited to get a chance to bring you back on. So I'm excited to get to do this today.
Awesome. I'm so stoked to be here too.
Yeah. So let's get started. Tell us why are you running for state delegate? What made you decide that was the thing to do this year?
Well, honestly, I don't personally want to be a politician, and it's a lot of responsibility being a young adult and transitioning through high school and having everything like all my needs met to like being independent and working for myself and on top of a political campaign. So I think it boils down to I just felt that responsibility for my community to be the change I want to see in the world. And so when the opportunity opened up for me, I just took it.
Excellent. And tell us a little bit about the district that you're running in. What does that district, Hawai'i 38, look like?
So this is District 48.
48. Sorry.
It's all good. We're a windward district. So if you look at Oahu, that's the island we're on, and you look on the east side of it, you'll find the area to be more rural, more on the suburban side. It's not city, it's more middle class people, working class people. The people are very friendly, loving, and hardworking. You'll find a lot of like nurses, a lot of like fast food workers, restaurant workers, teachers, and like city workers like custodians and things like that. And I think that another thing about our district is that we're like pretty deep in the country. We're going towards the deep country. So in area wise, I'd say it's from Heia to Waiahole, which is Hawaiian words that you probably don't know what they mean, but it's, if you think about it, it's just covered with like green, like rich green nature, like beautiful mountains, and so it's really rural. It's way different from the city of Honolulu. I think that's something important for people to know.
Yeah, and is that a district? Is that where you grew up, in that area?
Yes. So I went to high school at Castle High School, and that's the high school of the district that I'm talking about.
Great. So you have deep roots in your community, and when you decided to run, it was your home and your community, right?
Precisely.
Excellent. And what is it like? I know you have some stats on your webpage about voter turnout, voter registration in Hawaii. What is sort of the state of democracy in Hawaii? How much are people involved in your district and the government and things like that?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking that, because the state of democracy is pretty much like any American democracy. There's a system, there's a voting system. People go out to vote, and people are highly engaged with their civic rights and whatnot. But I think the most frustrating part is that there's like over 1 million people here in Hawaii, and I think it's like 5,000 or 6,000 or maybe less actually registered to vote, and probably so. The state of democracy and the way that the choices are made is really off balance, simply because not enough people that represent the voice of Hawaii are using their right, exercising their right to vote. And what's worse for my particular division of humanity is that I represent the youth and the future, right? And the thing is about my generation is that it's very hard to find a young person that is registered to vote. And so
Mhm.
now we have all these like older people, usually like elderly people, and usually like people that aren't really from here, like older like Caucasian people and maybe older like Asian people are the majority of our voters. So they're deciding the future for us because we're not exercising and we're not maybe aware or responsible enough yet to vote.
Yeah, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Hawaii is like Maryland. It's a very deep Democrat state. Democrats control most everything, and it is. When I ran for state delegate in 2018, it was in a district that I think had gone Democratic every election for the last like 60 years, and Democrats win, by like 85% or something like that. Do you face something similar to that in your district?
Yeah. Yeah. The current incumbent of our district right now is Democrat. I feel like, yeah, Hawaii is a pretty liberal state. I'd say for the majority there's a lot of democracy, and I think nowadays there's more like grassroots democracy too. You'll see like the union, the workers like doing a lot of protests on the streets now, using their grassroots democracy even more. I think the whole democratic republic system is kind of failing everybody, honestly, to be honest.
Yeah,
That's
I think it is. I think it is around the. I think a lot of people are coming to realize that, but I think young folks, especially, are coming to realize that. Do you find that amongst your peers and your friends, a lot of people are just tired of the two-party system?
Yeah, and honestly, it's crazy because they don't even think there's anything beyond that. So they're stuck in this limiting belief system that like, oh, it's either red or blue, and this is just causing fights and arguments and stress in between my family and friends. So I'm just gonna opt out of the whole system altogether. But that's not really productive.
Yeah, and I guess that leads me to my question about how did you come to find the Green Party then?
That's a great question too. So I think I was always interconnected because when I was in high school, I started getting into the environmental movement or space, and I never actually knew about the Green Party because I wasn't so involved in politics. But because I was in that network of people, one of my aunties, Auntie Laulani, she texted me. It was one day, and she was like, "Hey, uh, you wouldn't be thinking about running for office, would you?" I was like, "Huh, would I?" And so I was like, "I guess so." And then so and she gave me the reference of Mr. Dave Milenix. He's like super, super cool Green Party advocate. And he does some cool things for our community. And he just took me under his wing and walked me through this whole process. And actually, when I actually went to go apply to actually run and get all my signatures, we were doing this at the spur of the moment because this was like a week ago that she texted me this, and then so we were getting all of her signatures the day of. And maybe next time I'll share deeper about that story, but I got my votes in. I mean, not my votes, but like my signatures in to get into office, literally 15 minutes before the election office closed.
Yeah, I mean, but you got it in, right? You got it in. You're going to be on the ballot, and good job on your auntie there on reaching out to you. It's always interesting to hear people's origin story of how they came to the Green Party, whether it was a family member, whether it was a friend, whether it was something they found on the internet. And so I'm always just curious to hear how folks found it, because I think my experience is like yours. when I was younger, most folks just didn't know it was a choice. It doesn't get taught in school. It's not on the news. And so how you do find it, I think, is always interesting for me. So, um, well, now that you're there, you know, other than, what made you say yes to that when your auntie was like, hey, do you want to run for office? What made you go from whatever you were doing that day to out collecting signatures within a week?
Like I said, man, it's called kuleana here in Hawaii, and that's your responsibility. I feel a deep responsibility to change the world, or be the change that I feel like the world needs, because I'm just tired of witnessing things that I don't want to witness, that bring us pain, that bring us destruction and bring us havoc all together. And I'm putting my foot down, and I believe that I believe that the youth and the future needs somebody to look up to, or a role model to to live by. So I guess I'm just leading by example. But then also, it's like it felt like destiny, because in the years prior to this, I've done I participated in the Hawaii Alliance's progressive action campaign to cohort to teach locals how to prepare for political office, and to organize grassroots on a major scale. So I think, like, in the time period of me first deciding in high school, like, hey, I want to be part of the solution, not the problem, to like up until now, where like I've worked with grassroots organizations, I've worked with big environmental organizations like nationwide. I've like spoken to a lot of different people. I've met a lot of like local legends and gurus, and like scientists and researchers, and now, after just doing that cohort in 2023, and just being immersed by people that were like local people, middle class working people that are taking a step up and running for office, like that really made me feel prepared. And so I think if all that didn't happen when somebody asked me to run for office, I probably would have been like, no, like I can't do that. But because I was preparing all this time, it felt like destiny for when that call came and the Green Party was looking for young candidates. Then it was like, if I don't take this, then that's just running away from the kuleana.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And so it sounds like you've been active in politics, you've been an activist, you've been engaged for a long time. Did it start in high school for you, or did it start before that?
Honestly, yeah, it did start in high school. I feel like I've always loved nature, and I've always loved my community, but I was just blinded by the beauty of our islands, and the ignorance of, well, not being shown like what the current state of conditions, the current conditions of the world were as a kid and as a youth. Like, I feel like reality was sugar coated for me when I was younger, and it was my own desire to learn that opened up the world of what is actually happening. So I guess, I mean, yeah, like, wait, what was the question again?
It was, did you start was high school the time when you started getting engaged? And it seems like
I
that's when
started
it
a
started
club.
happening
Yeah, I
for you.
started a club in high school, but I never really wanted to be a politician, just because like how I was perceiving it at the time. Like, why would you want to? Like, they're just old, like adults bickering with each other and not helping their community, taking money for like from old thing. Like, we knew what was happening. It's like, why would we want to be a part of that? So for a long time, I didn't believe in politics. But yes, I was participating in politics without being conscious of participating in it.
So you were doing real activism and engagement and community work in high school that later became a part of how you saw politics.
Yes.
What about you said you started a club in high school. What was it? What was it focused on?
Climate. It was called the Castle Climate Club, and it was basically just me showing my peers videos of climate change and like what's actually happening in the world, because that's how I learned about it. And I figured that, well, if my parents aren't showing me this and my teachers aren't showing us this, then, well, somebody's gonna have to show them. So I just did that, and then we started having conversations after the videos, and we started talking about, okay, so what can we do about this? What do we have control of? How can we bring awareness in our school, and just kind of focus on that, the small scale, and like the things that we could affect most. And then we started doing beach cleanups. We started like networking with different like local businesses, like eco-friendly businesses, and learning more about our community that way. And that just, the dominoes kept tipping over and knocking each other down, and one thing led to another.
Yeah, that sounds really great, and I imagine that peer-to-peer way of engaging this like got a lot of folks engaged that may not have gotten engaged otherwise. You reaching out to your friends and showing them videos and things like that.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but yeah, because we had like the first meeting, we got like 20 or 30 kids to come in, and just at lunchtime too, and just watch videos. And I mean, I was already in the National Honor Society, so I understood how to organize a club and make the agenda and like have a plan. So I was already basic organizing, and I worked with the local five, like I think a year before that, which is a union here, like a workers union. And that's where like I met some of the local legends, like Ikaika Hasi, who's actually he just won his primary election for district, the no, I don't remember the number, but it's a Kalihi district. So and Marty Townshend is his wife, and she works for Earth Justice as a lawyer, and she helped like the 14th Youth Plaintiffs like win their case against the Department of Transportation. They sued the state for not complying with like the standards that they promised. That the that big agency that does climate around the world. The with France and all the countries. Yeah, they
So the
talking.
young people in Hawaii sued the state of Hawaii for not complying with its compliant climate requirements, and they won.
Yes.
Excellent. Yes, that sounds like a really good win. So,
Yeah, it
um,
was.
so how's your campaign going?
Campaign, I'd say it's going great. I mean, I'm learning like not to bash myself for how much that I could be doing, because I recognize that like I'm it's this not a it's not a, I don't have a lot of supporters. I'm not the kind of guy that has a lot of friends, because I don't go to parties, and I'm social, but it's like I don't have time to focus on social, like being social and having fun so much. I mean, my fun is like helping my community. So I'm working a full-time job as a state homeless outreach worker. So I talk to homeless people, try to get them housing, get them snacks, hygiene kits, like wound care, like trying to make a difference in that way from 9 to 5, from Monday to Friday. And then sometimes on Wednesdays I'll go down to Ahimanu, that's my district, and then I'll go sign waving, just like getting myself out there as much as I can with my limited availability. And then on Saturdays, today actually, I'm gonna go door knocking the district, and we're gonna pass out some of the flyers and just meet the community. And it's cool, because sometimes people are like super super stoked to see a young person, and the way that I approach it just like super casual. So it's like it's chill. I'm not trying to be anybody. I'm not trying to be a politician. So I think that's great. But some people are still just like, oh yeah, I don't believe in the system anymore. Like I don't really care. So but you know I think for the most part there's a lot of support, and I think um it's just about honestly anybody who I can make smile in a day counts. And that for me is that success in my campaign, because this is for the long run. If I don't get in this year, I'll get in next year, or like the next election. And if I don't get in then, I'll get in next election. And I'm not gonna stop. So it's going great.
Yeah, I love that approach to it. I love what you say about, just talking to your community and making sure that you can get people to smile, because it is important to be able to have conversations with folks, to be able to bring a little bit of joy to somebody, and allow them to see something new. And I really love that approach of it. Also, I think one thing that most folks don't recognize is that most Green Party candidates are working folks. And so we do have that 9 to 5, whatever it is. And campaigning for us is not our job. Nobody's paying us millions of dollars. Nobody's, giving us leave from work to go do these things for months on end. And so, I appreciate that you take the opportunity that you can get in order to talk to folks and bring the message to them.
Yeah, and I wanted to have a huge shout out to the Green Party for donating a generous $1,000 to our campaign. We only use about half of it so far, but we've used that money on text banking and then making signs and flyers.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And, because I think a lot of times if you hear the people talking on the internet, they will say, well, the Green Party doesn't do anything to help down ballot candidates. It only pays attention to the presidency. But they sent you $1,000 so that you could figure out how to reach out more, and I think it's not the same kind of money that the Democrats and Republicans can kick down to their candidates, but it's important to your campaign. And I think it's really useful for folks to know that happens.
Absolutely, it's huge, and they even like help out by sending email blasts like to the National Green Party folks, and so some individual people donated too. So thank you, whoever donated. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, and if somebody wants to donate to you, go ahead. How do they do that?
If you'd like to donate, then you just type in www.thedailybread.com, and yeah, donate button should be on the homepage.
Excellent. All right. So you ready to talk about some of the issues? We've covered a little bit of the background, a little bit of your campaign. You ready to dive into some of the issues you're running on?
Yeah, let's go. I'm ready.
All right. Let's start with one that I know we talked about before, and I've seen in some other places and some newspaper surveys you've talked about. Let's talk about the cost of living in Hawaii.
Oh, bruh, tell me about it. The cost of living.
Yeah. So what's the problem? What you going to do about it?
Okay. Well, so let's start with this. Around 5 years ago, the average price of a home in Honolulu went from $700,000 roughly to $1.5 million. And this is because people with a lot of money, usually not from here, go ahead and buy like a whole like unit or like a cluster. This is what they call it, a cluster of units, which is like spaces, like different rooms in a condominium or like a building, or sometimes like even like an area, or like a lot of different houses in the same area. And then they'll go off and like list them online and like advertise it in the mainland for people to come here and like get a house there. And so what happened was so many people did that, and it forced so much of our local people on the streets, or just to be like dramatically affected, like financially and economically. And the prices of the houses went up, and also everything else went up because now we're way more populated than we ever were. And now there's just basically people from the mainland keep coming here and buying all of our stuff, and then making it way too expensive for us to live here. And so the cost of living is literally impossible. And I have no idea how people are still doing it, but we are. But now we're just suffering like the consequences, like mental health issues and family problems, and not giving our kids the proper love and affection that they need, and thus causing more violence in Hawaii, and the list goes on. I think that's the root of the problem, is that, yeah, people from the mainland with a lot of money are buying our property, buying our land. Oh, also the military and the government, not the government being bought out by people with a lot of money, and not allocating the money towards the people, the local people, and prioritizing the local people of Hawaii.
So that's the problem. When you are in the Hawaii, when you win, what are you going to do about it? What do you think the solutions are?
Everybody knows the solutions. So affordable housing that's actually affordable, not like, okay, so you cannot, okay, $2,800 for a studio is not affordable, and it should not be advertised as affordable. We need more money to go out to like housing vouchers, which is vouchers that like government money that helps people pay off their rent, and it's through like different types of housing programs. There's rapid housing, which is like short-term assistance, like 1 to 2 years, just get back on your feet, like it pays like maybe 50 to 70% of your rent until you get back on your feet. Transitional housing, this is for people who are kind of like are like way back, way behind, and they're like really suffering, and they need that extra leg, and they maybe need a case manager to figure out some more life stuff for them, and so then they pay for their rent for amount of time, but then eventually they'll pay their own rent, right? And then while they save up money, right? It's like that's the whole point. Like it's not doing it for them. It's not housing for them. It's to help repair what was already lost and damaged. And then there's permanent housing, which is huge, that we should have a lot of money for, because this is for people who cannot work anymore, that are disabled, that have been working their whole lives, that maybe their workers' comp ran out, or Social Security is not giving them enough money, and Social SSDI isn't giving enough money, and this is permanent housing for kupuna and people that are disabled, that cannot work, that have paid their share of work and into the and energy into the community, and it gives them a place to stay, or it helps it relieves their rent for however long they live, which may not even be that long, right? So I think that's one of the most passionate things I am about, that I will change when I get into office. I think what like lingers in the back of my mind is like the whole system itself. Like I wonder how it's really going to be, because I say this now, but like a lot of people say things like this now, but then they get into office and things change. And I wonder why, and I wonder if, not that it will happen to me, but like what will make it look like it happened to me, like what actually goes on in there, like that makes people, like makes things not happen the way that they should be, that we know it should go.
Yeah, like what disconnects people from the values that they ran on once they get into office, and like how does that happen? And I think some of it is the job is hard, right? Governing is difficult and governing is hard, but I also just think some of it is that people compromise on things they shouldn't compromise on, and forget how important it is for the people who got them there to take care of the things they said they were going to do originally.
Mm.
So what about rent control? Is rent control something that you think is something you would go after?
Rent control, like when you, like there's like a certain cap on how high you can make your rent.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would help a lot, alleviate so much economical like stress that we're facing. I think, yeah, I think if we could like cap the rent to like something that's actually livable, like, let's say $1,500 for a studio. Like that's the max that you can pay for a studio. Then like people could actually afford that, because this is the first time in my life that I'm in a full-time job, and I make $3,300 a month. Let's say my rent for a studio is I'm just a single guy, right? First, if the rent was $1,500 a month, like that would still be half of my paycheck a month, but I could still live with that,
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's like it's not always like that, and the places that are like already affordable are taken, and it's already occupied, and so now there's only like these super expensive places.
And so you end up in this thing where working people who are from Hawaii, are unable to find a place to live, while people from the mainland are coming in and staying in Airbnbs and taking up all the good property, and uh, it puts a squeeze on people. And I think that you talked a little bit about how it has other effects. It creates homelessness, it creates violence, and things like that. I want to talk about that in a second, but I also know that you've mentioned healthcare access and healthcare prices at some points. What would you do to help make sure that everybody in Hawaii had access to healthcare?
Healthcare is extremely important. I think for me, I would create incentives for people in health organizations to have more outreach and more like more organization around how healthcare can be distributed. Because I know there's a lot of people that that they're pretty low income, and the reason why they don't get healthcare is because, one, they don't know how to apply, or two, they just don't have enough time, and they don't have like enough resources, or they don't know where to go to apply for the healthcare. So I would allocate more funds for that and create incentives that engage that makes sense, that engage our community to prioritize that more, and that make it just simpler and easier, because everybody deserves a right to proper healthcare. And yeah, and I think it's like, like maybe allocating more funds to the nonprofit organizations that are doing that, because there's so many like wellness centers. There's a lot of resources. I think it's just that we don't have enough funding for it, which we should, because there's all these other things that we see around that is like, oh, that's where our tax money is going to. It's like it's not directly affecting us at all. It's like it's building a new street, or it's like building like a roundabout, or like building a rail. It's like, why are we what are we doing? Like, who is this for? Why are we doing more urban, like, why are we creating all this city stuff? Like, we literally live on an island. Islands aren't supposed to be big cities, but for some reason, when I look outside Waikiki, it looks like New York City a little bit. So I'm perplexed, honestly.
Yeah, no, fair enough. There was a recent story here in Baltimore about how workers in the city transportation department and the city department of public works, who have really good benefits through the city, weren't taking advantage of it because they didn't know how to access their benefits, and the city, who employed them, wasn't even helping them to really connect to those benefits. And I think that story. I think that resonates in a lot of places. I think there are resources available for folks, but folks don't know how to get access to them. They don't believe they qualify for them. And in addition to making sure that more people have care, it also just seems like what I hear you saying is making sure more people know about the resources that are available to them. Even if we don't have the kind of healthcare system where everybody can go and without, we don't have a nationalized healthcare system, even if we should, but there are a lot of resources out there, and making sure that people who need them have access to them seems like a really important goal that I hear you talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All right, so let's move on to. I saw on your website you talk about the importance of indigenous rights, and talk briefly a little bit about that issue and how it relates to Hawaii.
Aloha Aina. That is my core value. That means, aloha means everlasting love. It means the spirit that we share, the breath of life that we share, that connects us, that interconnects us with all living things in this entire universe and all of creation. And Aina, the land that sustains us. I think if this value is perpetuated in the government level, at the core, Hawaii could look so much different, and we could prosper with this new technology age, and our ancient traditions and our culture could meet each other in the middle and prosper. So yeah, so indigenous indigenous people know how to live without the distraction of our artificial creations.
Mhm.
And all right, yeah, pretty much. I'll just end it there. So
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I saw on your flyer you talk about protection of sacred sites as one of the key issues. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Makua Valley is a place of peace and sanctuary. It was a beautiful valley in the west side, the coast of Waianae. And the military has went into the village that was once there and told everybody to leave, gave them $100, said that you could come back and when we're done with this. And then they went there with all their bombs and guns, and they set it on fire and completely desecrated people's homes, like people's lives. That they were there like hundreds of years before them. And then they had the nerve to say, oh, you guys can come back, the land's all desecrated, and you only can come back with an escort, a military escort. So now, like, Makua Valley, this is just one out of probably like a handful of sites that the military has come and just ravaged and just desecrated, and then like It was like it was like, okay, but you could still look at it now, but we'll hold a gun like over your shoulder while you do. So yeah, super psyched.
So what is the solution to that when you get elected?
Okay, so this is one that, like, I don't know, because the government, the U.S., America, and the military are so connected in a way that, like, I can't, I don't know how to put my fingers on it, but it's like, give us the land back, return the people to the land, because I'm telling you, Hawaii will fight back. The power of nature is letting humans play this little game of power and dominance, but nature has ultimate control over everything. And we've seen this in Florida. We saw it in Lahaina, This is real things. Like, nature will take it back if you don't give the people back to the land that they were chosen to care for.
Excellent. Yeah. And, I mean, I think it is a complicated issue, but there has to be somebody in the government who's going to make it a priority and not compromise on it, and untangling the bureaucracy of how you deal with the U.S. military will be a hard job once you get there. But having the commitment that it is a sort of priority and a value, I think will make it easier. To do that, so.
Absolutely.
Also, you talk about political representation for Indigenous Hawaiians. What is that problem, and what is the solution there?
The problem there is that we have too many people in government that do not understand and do not have the same morals and virtues that I do, right? Like aloha aina, return the people back to the land, and vice versa, like all this, and so on, right? So we need to raise up our local people that that are strong in these values and train them to be into office. And so if we could get a handful of locals that were ready and to embrace their kuleana and know what they're doing in office, then the system changes from the inside out. If we get a bunch of people that commit to, like, we're not gonna fold when money comes our way. We're not gonna fold when a higher up is telling us that we should be doing something. We're not gonna fold the peer pressure. We're going to stand true to our core as the people of Hawaii, and we're going to do right for our community, for our future, and we're going to stand firm in that belief. We need all of us to just rise up and just do it. Just fight the good fight with long suffering until we have a government that's not made out of foreigners and people that are easily distrayed by materialistic things.
Yeah, and I think having a powerful Green Party rooted in those values helps to push back against the Democratic Party and the business interests and the folks that drive their decision making. And I love to hear you talking about that. And I think I don't know if you've looked at all into the way that New Zealand restructured their government to make sure that there was representation of Indigenous folks in it. But if not, I can send you some information on that. I think it was really, they were very intentional about making a proportional representation system that had allotted seats for folks in order to make sure that that voice was part of government from the beginning without any question.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'll send that to you. I think it's a really good example to think about like what multi-party governance looks like and think about what that looks like when explicitly protecting Indigenous political rights. So I'll send that to you. I'll get that your way after this. Anything else you want to say about Indigenous rights before we move on to youth?
Indigenous rights. Yeah, honestly, we need to prioritize in a state that was unlawfully taken from its people. I think Indigenous rights has a rightful place to be prioritized in whatever system that is operating the islands and the lands of Hawaii. Period.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, and I think getting somebody elected who is committed as fiercely to that as you are this time will be very good for moving the movement forward. And I look forward to hearing how it goes for you on that. So let's move on and talk about youth. You on your website, you talk a lot about reaching out to youth, but also creating opportunity for young people in Hawaii. Talk a little bit about the state of young folks there and what you want to do about it.
Oh my goodness. Well, unfortunately, but maybe fortunately, the youth today have been extremely colonized, whitewashed, brainwashed, even if I may, to the point where our vision is so clouded. I think we're just so caught up in the mainstream media. I'm saying this as a collective, right? What I've observed from my peers and people my age, we've 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 got lost in this culture of, okay, I'm gonna follow after like my parents. And I'm just gonna drink, and I mean, not just saying that parents are drinking, but like when they come home after a long day of work, they're drinking, right? And I think this seed is just being passed down and cultivated that, like, okay, so that we just drink, and so we are using our precious like prime times of our lives right now to just like drink, party, have fun, and like not be productive. Not We're getting more lazy. We're not focusing. We have no sight like of the bigger picture. And I think because that this age of technology, we're super overstimulated with our phones, with computers, and just everything that we're consuming is draining our energy so that we aren't able to focus on cultivating a bright future, like having space to think and care beyond what the screen allows us to. It's pretty sad, but I believe I've met some amazing, articulate, like innovative people my age too that are in these systems, that are, that they're traveling and going to all these conferences and actually making the difference and putting in that good foot forward. So I think it's just a matter of having, right, the correct role models and building these influencers, like, right, like that's my dream. If I get into office, I want to create more programs for youth, especially youth in middle class working communities. So after high school, and instead of going home to their parents aren't home because they're working, they can come to a place where they can be amongst other teens in a positive setting, in a safe environment, that they can learn about, things that are going on. They can get excited about politics, not politics, but let's say activism. They can get excited about like creating being the pioneers of a golden future. And that's something that I think activates all of us if we're given the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the type of programs that allow folks to utilize and develop their voice, to utilize and develop their vision and their skills are transformative. For a very long time, I coached debate around the country. And so I coached debate in Baltimore City and Long Beach, California. Uh,
Nice.
and it was great because it was an opportunity for folks who had an idea that they wanted to be something different, that they wanted to be that change, to come learn those skills, and then to apply those skills and to chart their own path and to chart their own vision. So I very much connect with you on the necessity of having those type of programs, because I think there are so many young people who are looking for that path to be engaged, who are looking to change the way that to change generational pathways and to find something new. But there have to be the opportunities for them, there have to be the programs for them, and there have to be the services to get them engaged. So I think that's a really important one, and I'm glad to hear you talking about that. What about education? What do you see as the state of education? And I don't want to always just talk about young people through the lens of education. I think it's important to talk about what happens outside of school too. But school does take up 8 hours a day of young people's lives, 9 months a year. So what is your take on education, and what do you think is working with it, and what would you do with it?
Okay, let's start with what's working. Well, it gives the parents a break from their kids for 8 hours to go to work. The DOE, I think recently the DOE is being more eco-minded, in the sense where we're opening more programs for kids to get involved and get their hands in the dirt and making changes that way. Still think it could come a long way, and I still think our Department of Education is very westernized. It does not allocate for all the individual types of learning. if you know what I mean. Like it doesn't, it's only kind of directed towards like one or two specific types of learning. And a lot of kids here, especially like we're island kids, bro. We're savages. We're wild. We're wild, you know? We we tend to learn different than the system that's in place. And I think that it takes way too long for change in the DOE, and it hasn't really changed too much as fast as humanity and society is changing today. You know, I think the DOE needs to be more centered and more rooted in Hawaiian culture and values. You know, like I think we should be teaching our kids more about Hawaiian culture than Western, like American culture. Because yeah, okay, that's important, but it's not as important as all the stuff that you don't tell us about the place that we're actually from. And so what I'm noticing is that so many kids have lost like this, the connection right there. They're severed when the connection from Hawaiians was severed from colonizers like 150 years ago or whatever. This broke the generational knowledge and tradition passing down. So the grandparents would teach the kids, and then the kids would teach their kids. And so when that stopped and they stripped their identity, when the colonizers stripped Hawaiians' identities, the people were no longer to teach their kids. And so now we have a bunch of kids that are Hawaiian and are like, that are like rocking like, you know, like Juice World, which is like a rapper, like, you know, like t-shirts, and they're like, they don't know how to speak Hawaiian, and they don't know the actual significance of the Hawaiian culture and tradition. So they're being raised in a very like Western modern way, which is like okay, but it's not going to cultivate Hawaii. It's going to cultivate America, you know? It's yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. So more an education policy that is more focused on Hawaiian culture, less American, less Western, that is trying to help decolonize the minds of the young people instead of colonize the minds of the young people.
Yes, and also that incorporates more art and therapeutic relief, because we're all suffering from lots of mental like just dysfunction because of the system that we have implicated upon ourselves. And this is the cause of all these negative effects that we have in society, right? Like young kids stealing stuff, like young kids getting in fights, young kids vaping and smoking at young ages and messing up their frontal lobes so they can't be competent adults in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And, I think colonization, white supremacy, American culture, and vast income inequality create conditions for violence. They create conditions for crime and things like that. And I know one of the things I saw on your website is that you have some ideas for addressing violence prevention among young folks. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
So it's like it's super simple, man. The key to nonviolence is to give the kid, the person that can't, necessarily control or regulate their emotions, a place to express it in a safe, not like nonviolent way. And it can't like, so this is what I'm thinking. Like we have like these youth programs for well, there'll be some for boys or girls. I mean, yeah, it could be non-gender, whatever. Like it could be gender confirming, and you could just like you could have like punching bags and stuff. Like you could have things to like physically release the energy, and then after that, we'll sit down in a group and we'll talk about how do you feel now. You know, like we'll have like a little mental break, like a therapy session, if you will, but like collectively groups so people can hear each other's challenges and struggles and conditions and know that they are not alone, because that's so much of the like once you feel like you're alone, you look at everybody else like they're out trying to get you. But when you're in a community, in a safe space where people are all around you expressing stuff that you relate to, you feel interconnected within the community, and this gives our consciousness that sense of trust in our systems, in our community, in our world, and this cultivates peace. This cultivates sovereignty, true freedom and liberation.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said, I was involved for a long time in debate, and that got me exposed. It's not the same as punching bags, but it kind of is, right?
Yeah,
Because if you really want to argue with somebody, and you can go into a classroom and have it out with words, like that
verbally, yeah.
becomes a way of expressing that and building that identity. And I think one of the things that was so important that I learned in that was um, the programs have to be rooted in the culture of the students that they're trying to serve. It can't be imposed from the outside, and it can't be the sort of thing where it is like, well, this worked in Cleveland, maybe it'll work in Hawaii. You know,
Exactly.
it has to. It may be that something that worked in Cleveland can be adapted to work there, but there has to be stuff that is rooted in the culture of the folks that are being, in the programs, has been my experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
and I think, I think sometimes I like your take on this, that it's like sometimes it's simple. It's give folks stuff that makes sense, that's easy, and that gives them sense of self, sense of value, put the funding behind that and let that stuff do its work. So
Yeah, absolutely. And then the debate system, I think that could be another solution for out here in Hawaii, especially at the youth level and the young adult level. Like if we could cultivate more spaces to do so, and like it's just, I honestly, right, everything is runs by money, but it's just like if we allocate the energy and support and resources towards things like that, could make a huge difference, especially for a kid who doesn't know what his purpose is on earth, and then he has that opportunity to stumble upon a debate club and then realize, like, wow, I'm actually passionate about this. Wow, I
yeah.
find a place where I belong here, and like once you have that as a young kid, like you are pretty much set into your adulthood. But if you don't have that, it makes things way harder.
Yeah, and I when I send you the stuff about New Zealand, I can send you some stuff about debate clubs. We can talk about that some more going forward. But I really think that, to me, that it's not that debate club is the answer. It is a idea of the type of thing that you're talking about that gets folks engaged, that allows them to find out what they care about and what they're interested in. And and the key to it is to make sure, I mean, the answer to a lot of these things is make sure the good stuff has the money from the government in order to do what it needs to do, so that we can spend the money on student programs, student-led and culturally responsive programs, instead of on, policing, prisons, and violence prevention.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So, anything else you want to talk about youth before we talk about environment, climate, and sustainability?
Mm. Uplift the youth today, empower our future tomorrow.
Excellent. That's a great way to move on from this. So, last of the issue topics I want to talk about is the environment, climate, and sustainability. And I saw that you had something on your website about local farmers and sustainable ag. So let's start with that, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
We need to allocate more funds towards local farmers and sustainable agriculture, because that is our only hope in surviving if the worst case scenario, the electricity goes out and they stop importing goods to our island in the middle of the ocean. If we just die, like that would be a shame on humanity, because we literally thrived for thousands of years on just this island alone, and these islands in the Ahupua'a system. The Ahupua'a system. This is the system that feeds the whole community from the mountains, the Mauna, to the Makai, which is the ocean. The rain comes from the sky and it hits the mountains and it cultivates streams. And these streams can be used to farm kalo, which is a staple food, Hawaiian kalo, like a potato. And then, and there's farmers who work on these kalo fields, and then this is throughout the valleys. And then the water connects to a ocean, a source of water. And then at the ocean, you'll find different types of people. You'll find the fishermen who are cultivating protein. And all these people are working together in harmony and symbiosis and sustaining communities and sustaining life. I think we need to start figuring out how to do that as soon as possible, because we are in a time of crisis. Like we were given a chance to correct our mistakes like a long time ago, but we didn't. So now our generation has to not suffer, but grow through the growing pains of what the past has done, and which means we need to prepare. And I don't know if there's a question about climate change preparedness, but we definitely need supporting agriculture and local farmers is a way that we are cultivating climate preparedness. And because we need to start relying on the aina, the land that feeds us. We need to stop relying so much on imported goods and change our mindset around it, because right now we're so like stuck in the limiting belief system that food is cheaper and like fast food is cheaper, like Walmart supporting these big corporate businesses is cheaper, and this is the only way I could survive, when that's not the case at all. It's cheap because your energy is feeding it, and the collective is feeding that, which makes the prices go down, which but cultivates the whole importing, which makes them send more goods, and that's why you're so attached to it. But if we start breaking free and we can have some programs to start sending money back to farmers, local agriculture, we get incentives for locals to go to the farmers markets and start, supporting this system organically, then we can move into a future where we're going back to the Ahupua'a system, where we're connecting with each other instead of staying in our individualized little boxes and thinking that the whole world is against us.
Yeah, no, I love that, and I think that the idea of having food sovereignty is important anywhere, but it's especially important on an island that is reliant on importing everything right now. I mean, I think it's important here in Baltimore. I think it's important everywhere, but I appreciate this could be a life or death situation that you're raising here as it relates to an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So I think that idea of reinvesting in an existing sustainable agricultural system that is indigenous, that has been there for 1,000 years and has been working, is a really important one, and I appreciate that a lot. You did mention community climate resilience, and I want to give you a chance to talk about some of that as well, if it goes beyond what we were just talking about with food and agriculture.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. So beyond agriculture and farming, there's traditional Hawaiian practices that teach how to build hale, or houses, right? And this is all out of wood. This is all out of like natural things. And I've attended some of these I was fortunate enough to attend these classes where we like actually built a house structure, like a small house structure, of course, but from the ground up. And it takes a whole team, it takes a village to do this. But by that alone, like it just reached, like, it planted the seed in my mind that's like, wow, we can do this, with just the nature around us. We don't need to go through this whole system of the money and the bank loans and the credit cards and all this artificial stuff. Like nature, earth, God has already given it to us, but it's just up to us to cultivate this education and this knowledge around it. So I think a part of climate resiliency here is really helping each other understand that, look, guys, I know you guys are in the system right now. Like, I know we're all like struggling to make ends meet, but we need to prioritize some time, maybe once a week, to talk about what our backup plan is. What are we going to do when, let's just say when, because worst case scenario, when like Russia, like tackles our electricity, like, something like that happens, and there's no Wi-Fi, there's no communication, we can't communicate with each other. Where are we going to meet, for example? What are we going to do in a climate disaster? Like a climate disaster, let's say a tsunami that fortunately never hits us because we're protected, but let's say a tsunami hits us. Where is the meetup point for a tsunami? Where is the food? Where is like the immediate food that we're gonna go to? Like what do we do about the kid in school? Where is he gonna go? Does he know where he's gonna go to meet up with us, or is he just gonna be like, just start thinking about that as a community, so it's not so scary, because it is very intimidating, and I think that's why people don't want to think about it. But we have to look at the state of the conditions right now and be real. Like, we need to start thinking about this.
Yeah, and we need to start investing in it, right? Like we can see wildfires, we see hurricanes, we see floods. Every week there's some place, somebody's community that is collapsing because of climate. And if there's no plan for resilience, if there's no plan for recovering that doesn't rely on Walmart or Target in order to get food in that situation, then people are going to be in really bad places. And we see, I mean, watch the news the last week, the last year, the last decade, and see that this is coming. The climate crisis is coming for all of us. And if the system isn't saved, resilience, or if the system isn't changed drastically, we have to start building resilience, and the government has to start investing in that resilience. The government may not be the one that can tell your community what to do about it, but the government can make resources available to you and your community in order to be able to have a plan for how you deal with it, you know? And so I love that one of your focuses on this is community resilience, because too long has passed where we haven't done the work we need to stop the climate collapse, the climate catastrophes, and now we need to start investing in that resilience, you know. And I think you all had wildfires last year that were devastating, and you know, it's we need a focus on that. And I think that's one of the things I love most about your climate focus on this, is that it recognizes that reality, that there is no easy way out of what we've gotten ourselves into, and we need to start building the defense networks in order to be prepared for when the crisis comes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Andy, for reflecting back to me like everything that I say and just really meeting me at my level. And you know, like it's so nourishing.
Thank you. I'm, you know, I appreciate that, and that's what I'm trying to do, and trying to hear you reflect back from my experience what it looks like here. Because I think as Greens, we need to be able to build these connections from Baltimore to Hawaii to Texas to wherever, so that people can start to hear these thoughts, these ideas, and these conversations, because they're absent from what the Democrats and Republicans are offering us, especially in this presidential campaign.
Right. They don't talk about it. And it's so like, what? Like shocking. Because I think it's something like every single person. That's what I love about the Green Party too, because I immediately resonated with the goal, like the structure and the core virtues of the Green Party. And I think every human resonates with it, you know? And it's like Democrats and Republicans talk so much and distract so much from what is truly happening and what the good, like the highest good. They distract from the highest good of any human being's life. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I think we were talking about how stunning it is that the Democrats and Republicans at the national level and at the local level too just don't talk about the level of climate crisis that we're facing, and how shocking it is that they are in agreement on this when, like, the Republicans are so bad on it that it wouldn't be hard for the Democrats to talk about it some, but they seem to not want to.
Yeah. And it's makes me wonder, like, are you just ignoring it? Or is it actually, when you go home and take off the politician hat, are you as scared and as concerned as I am about your future, about your children, about us as humanity, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's a good question, because it it seems like the aim of Democrats on this question is not to solve the crisis, but is to be better than Republicans. And it's not hard to be better than Republicans, but there's a whole lot of space then between being better than Republicans and addressing the severity of the crisis. And you know, I appreciate. That's one of the things I love about you having the climate resilience piece in there, is like, we know that while they're running the government, we've got to build resilient communities, because they're not going to solve the problem.
Somebody's got to do it for real.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, it's great, you know? It's like, I think there's just a whole lot of ego involved in the two primary parties in general. Like you said, it's about being better than one another. And it's like, why do you need to be better than somebody if you're going to stick to the truth? The truth stands as truth, no matter what story. You don't have to argue if you're the truth, if you're representing the truth. So why are you, I don't know, like, I guess it's just like a whole lot of ego that's involved with it. And Green Party is like, no, like, but this is just the facts. Like, we need somewhere that's nonviolent because nobody likes being killed and nobody wants to see their country in war. You know, we need social justice because nobody likes being bullied or discriminated, right? And it's like we're steadfast in these values that, like, honestly, if I was in a debate with a Democrat or Republican, I wouldn't feel the need to be better than them.
Right. You feel the need to speak to the people and address the problems, not to be better, make more money, or have, and I love that sense of it. And one of the things I loved about talking to you here and in the thing that we did at the convention is you are just rooted in these values. You're rooted in the community that you came from, and you're aiming to bring those values to the solutions that you have to offer. And it feels to me, at least, that's why you're running your campaign.
Yeah.
So, I want to talk a little bit about some of your organizing goals. So we talked about policy, we talked about your campaign at this point. If you don't win, what are you trying to achieve via this campaign? What's the next step for you? How do you see this vision and idea growing?
That's a great question. So initially, I was like, when I started running for office, I kind of understood how things work. Like, basically, you run for office and then you get like a lot of money to be in office. And then I was like, wait, everything that I want to do hasn't been done because I don't have the resources, the money to do so. And then so I started seeing being elected into office as an opportunity to make these changes, you know? Like, why would I need a 5-bedroom house and a nice Lamborghini car to go to my job as a state homeless outreach worker? You know, like the way my mindset in my life is set up, like, I know that I would not use that money to just like gratify myself and to create like a more fun life for myself. So I know, and like all the things that I think about, like when I'm like just like, like riding my bike or like, playing guitar or whatever, like I write about change. I write about humanity. And so all these things that you've asked me about, and I'm thankful that you asked me about it because it feels good to reflect like off my thoughts, like actually verbally expressing this into reality. But I'm going to use that money to create programs for youth. Like I said, like the housing situation, that's a bigger thing that I would probably have to work from the system of in, but like I still could use that money to research, to find people that help me do the research, to find out where the best place to allocate money to tackle these solutions are. So like, even if I get into office and the people, like the whole government system isn't going to work, like I'm still going to do it regardless. Like, I don't care what you say or what is happening in your system because I know what needs to be done. And now thanks for the resources for me to do it because I'm going to do it. And if I don't get into office, then I'm going to keep running. And this campaign is just going to get bigger and bigger. And people are going to see more signs. Like, I'm still going to try to do signs. I'm still going to go door knocking. And eventually, nobody's going to be able to ignore me because my presence is going to be so loud that it's like, hey, I've been here all along. And now what are you guys going to choose this path or what? Like, because I'm still going to be here regardless. So I think it's just standing firm in that.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think about a lot with the Green Party is moving from a place where we are providing people choices to a place where we are changing outcomes in line with our values. And like it feels to me like you are very focused on that vision. You have a set of values, you know where you're rooted, and your aim is to change the outcomes. And I really appreciate that about you, and I appreciate that you understand that it may take more than one race to do it. This is if you win the first time, great, but that doesn't mean you give up. That means you keep going. That means you keep developing and you keep talking to more and more people, because it sounds to me like people are connecting with you on values, people are connecting with you on community, and people are connecting with you on solutions. And the next step is to keep building on that so that you can change those outcomes for your community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like you got the right. I know you say you don't want to be a politician, but it does sound like you have the training that you need in community organizing and political advocacy, that you have the connections you need, and that you have that rooting in values that is so important. And so whether you want to be a politician or not, I think you're on your path to being a very good one, and that this race is the first step to it, because because you have the right focus, you have the right vision, and I think people will appreciate that. So.
I appreciate you, Andy. That really meant a lot.
Yeah, no, I've been excited to have this conversation with you, and I've just been excited to get to hear you talk about what you're doing and why you're doing it. Really appreciated our opportunity to connect back in August, and I'm glad that we got another chance here. We are getting close to time here. I wanted to see, is there anything you want to leave folks with about what your vision is, why you're doing this? Any last words from you on this?
I highly recommend, if you can, read The Laws of the Sun by Ryoho Okawa. This book dramatically changed my life and my perspective about Earth, the planet that we live on, spirituality, nature, politics, all of this stuff. And it made me connect deeper to my humanity. It made me learn to extend compassion to even the people who I don't necessarily agree with. To extend compassion to, let's say, like super stubborn Democrats or Republicans that have completely opposing beliefs or whatever from me, and look beyond my own reality and understand that they are human too, and their reality and their projection is based on what they've gone through, and they just can't see any further. And that's not anything to take personally, but the only way to grow and to align as collective is to look beyond that and see them for the being, the creature of life, and the humaneness that I know that is inside their heart, that they want to contribute to. They want the world to be better, and look at it as if they're trying their best to make the world better. It might not align with what I think the world should be better, but at the same time, aligning with that instead of, dividing each other, right? So basically, unite with each other, stay as one, remember that we are all in this together. And even when people are pushing your buttons and arguing with you and getting you down, look beyond it and find that peace within yourself so that we can keep resilient in this fight for our freedom, honestly.
That is an awesome way to close this. I really appreciate that. I imagine we'll get like a little Instagram reel or short of that closing that you have just there. How do folks reach out to you? How do folks follow you? How do folks help out your campaign?
That's a great question. So my website is www.thedailybread.com. And honestly, I could give you my direct line if you want to text me about any like solutions or even just any concerns or anything that even if it's just something on a personal level that you're going through, because I'm an open book. It's 808-349-9923, 808-349-9923. My name's KODA. Give me a call, and I'm down to talk with you if ever you need to reach me.
Excellent. Well, KODA, thank you so much. This was awesome. I really appreciated the opportunity to talk with you. I wish you great luck on election day, and we'll come back and figure out how it went either way, and just try to make sure that we stay connected. I want to hear how the work is going. I want to hear how the building is going, and I want to talk about the campaign as well. So thank you so much for coming on today. It was really great to get to do this. And I know it's Saturday, but I also know you got some doors to knock. So I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to come talk to us.
Mahalo nui, Andy. You've been nothing but a blessing to me since I met you. Like, it's so cool to like talk with somebody about these kinds of things, and it just gives me more hope and inspiration to keep doing what I'm doing, man. So like, thank you, brother, and take care. I hope you have a beautiful day too. And tell your wife thank you for being the sound person and keeping the system running smoothly. I appreciate that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the feeling is mutual, KODA. It's been great talking with you in August. Great talking with you today, and I look forward to this being the second of many conversations that we have.
All right, man.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dakota, for coming on today to talk about his campaign for a state delegate in Hawaii. We got a busy week this week. We're going to be talking to folks from West Virginia, folks from Minnesota, folks from Maryland. I know it is campaign season, and I know that everybody is focused on the big ticket races, on the presidency, on the Senate, on all of that. But there's really important races happening down ballot across the country, and Greens are participating in those races. So thank you again for listening to the show. Go check out KODA's website. Throw him some money if you got a chance so that he can get some more signs and some more text banking and get the message out. And catch us tomorrow as we talk to a West Virginia gubernatorial candidate. And with that, I will say thank you to Dana, my wife, for doing the production. Thank you to KODA for being on the show. And thank you all for watching and listening.